Similar to Mortal Kombat Chronicles, I've started a series of short stories based on both Resident Evil and Persona, but neither was supposed to be like that. I just had an idea for one story and then more came to me. And while Re-Enter the Survival Horror has had about 6 chapters since 2019, this one started 3 months ago and already has enough material for 2 of these videos, so this is another series I'll be doing. But with a twist. See, some of my Persona stories don't fit the short stories format and are more substantial, so they're not part of this series. I have 3 of those. So each of these videos will also discuss one of those at the end. But before we get to that part, let's talk about the first 10 stories of Tales from the Metaverse. Chapter 1. The Confession. Despite its name, Tales from the Metaverse is not focused only on P5. I just chose the name because Metaverse works as a blanket term for all the other worlds in the series. In fact, since I started this series as I was wrapping up a P4 playthrough on Steam, most of the early stuff centers on that game instead. The Confession is a simple short where Yosuke confesses to Rise that he's always treated her as Rosette the idol and not Rise Kujikawa the person. I mean, even in friggin' February, when he's known her for almost 8 months, he's still going on about her being the idol that's not been a part of the industry in, again, 8 months. Characters realising their flaws and trying to make amends is a recurring theme in this series. Chapter 2. The Meeting of the Lovers. This one is a simple scene where the 4 representatives of the Lovers Arcana meet backstage before a talk show because all of them are involved in the entertainment industry for some reason. An idol turned TV fitness instructor, an actress, another idol, and a model. And yes, this does mean that Pre-3 is eligible, but not likely to be very common since I'm not as familiar with those casts. Of course, crossovers are a convenient way to get around that, since I can always just say any way it's inaccurate is just that the character has changed in the 20 years since we last saw them. Yeah, seriously, look at the timeline. P2 is 16 years before P5. Feeling old yet? I might make a follow-up where the other commonality of the Lovers Girls is delved into. Chapter 3. The Deduction. Going back to P4, I noted a certain similarity between one of Naoto's comments in her acceptance scene and Yukiko's S-Link story that Pat is consistently fucking wrong about. And I thought it could be interesting if Yukiko spoke to Naoto about that and the Detective Prince helped her figure herself out. Chapter 4. The Tricksters Nightmare. There was this gorgeous and haunting image I saw on Twitter by artist Jaslyn Jin to celebrate P5R's 1-year anniversary. The art depicts the royal trio surrounded by Joker's friends with these disturbing masks with smiles drawn on to mask their true feelings, and I just had to turn it into a nightmare sequence for Joker. Check out Jazzy's art if you got the time, it's very nice. Chapter 5. Naotos Blues. Of all things to inspire this, it was a scene in Horimiya where Hori is just randomly painting Miyamoto's toenails that inspired the idea of Rise doing the same for Naoto, who is trying to explore her feminine side more. The story was originally 2 scenes where Naoto's demeanour changed between them with no real rhyme or reason, so I folded a plan for a separate story where Kanji comments on how he and Naoto have kinda similar things to deal with into this story to complete it. And yeah, blue is the colour Rise chooses for Naoto because, obviously. Chapter 6. Stole Her Heart. This one is about what happens when Joker starts dating Anne and how Morgana reacts to it. The idea is that he starts to reflect on his attitude and how shallow his crush on Anne really is, with a little help from Haru because Haru acting as a peacekeeper, confidant and guide for her friends is so perfect that Atlas are fools for not establishing that she lets her friends come over to talk about their problems over tea and biscuits, the absolute frauds. And this is a good time to bring up one of the distinctions between this series and its MK and RE counterparts. There is no set continuity. While the other 2 are meant to be set in one universe, or 2, this series won't be doing that simply because I don't want to limit myself by having, for example, Joker date Anne in one story and then have all the rest be forced to follow this chapter's lead when some stories will benefit from or outright require that not being the case. Chapter 7. Your Affection. What if Rise develops self-awareness about how annoying her clinginess can come across? You get this story where she asks you if she annoys him. Simple. Chapter 8. Third time's the charm. While writing about Naoto elsewhere, I made mention of her age and had to check to be sure. She's 15 when P4 starts, but she's already 16 by the time she shows up as her birthday is in April. This means that she can't celebrate her birthday with her friends until her 17th, about a month after Yu returns home until May. So Yu makes sure he's able to spend her 18th with her even if it's just the 2 of them. And yes, this did release on her birthday. She's 26 now. Feeling old yet? Chapter 9. A Gift for the Queen of Executions. And then Mitsuru's birthday happened right after, so I had to make something about that. Makoto gives her a present and it makes her reflect on how she views her teammates. And in case you were wondering, she's 30, and yet Atlas refused to show her past age 20. They are robbing us every single day and we should not stand for this. Chapter 10. Going the Distance with You. To close out this set, we actually have a P5 story. That's what, 3 of 10, 4 if you count the crossover? As the name suggests, this one centers on Ms. Kawakami. I wrote it as part of Kawakame with the theme of family/motherhood to celebrate US Mother's Day, since the platonic route Kawakami basically mothers Joker and it's awesome. So the premise is that Joker wants her advice before he asks Anne out. This can be used to explain part of why these stories won't have set continuity. For a story like this, I could choose to have it be ambiguous who Joker is planning to ask out, since it doesn't really matter for the story since the focus is on Kawakami. But the story can be strengthened by making it Anne she's advising him about, since she is in Kawakami's homeroom class. Likewise, I have a story coming up where it doesn't really matter who Joker is dating as long as it's not Haru, but that story will benefit from the girl in question being Makoto for reasons that will become apparent once that story is written. So foregoing a strict continuity means I wouldn't have to potentially weaken the story by saying Joker is with Anne when another girl would add more to that specific piece. And now we have this episode's standalone story, the Tricksters Journal. My first dip into Persona stories, this one is formatted as excerpts from Joker's journal that he writes over the course of his year in Tokyo and is thus written in first person. I intentionally didn't give Joker a name in this because this was just after I put out the first Persona Wasted Potential in which I called Joker Ren, and some people did not appreciate that because they prefer him being called Akira, even though officially he is Ren. Like, stay mad chumps. This is almost a prototype for Metaverse since some chapters are short and dumb and exist just to lead into a punchline, while others are more substantial. The overarching focus of this story is on Joker and Kawakami's relationship, with moments like alternate versions of some confidant events and dates, and some unique events like Kawakami getting offended by how half-assed the students are with their maid cafe, because it's ridiculous that it's the class of the teacher who moonlights as a maid that puts on a maid cafe, and we never get to see how she responds to any of it. Once again, Atlas continues to rob us of the best content while they shill bad story expansions and spotlight stealing Mary Sue's. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended content is Crystal's Dancing Videos playlist, where she cosplays a Persona character and performs one of their dances from the dancing games. She's also ranked each character by their dancing skill, which was also pretty cool.